Hey everyone, it's Donna Lynn. I'm so excited to be on Facebook Live with you tonight. I figured it out all by myself, and the last time I did a Facebook Live event, I was with Kylene Beers and Terry Lassane, and they sort of guided me through the process. And so I'm super happy that I was able to successfully figure it out. I'm in my office at my house. I have my Sonic ice. I spent all day working in the yard, which means that it feels like summer to me, even though I know it's not technically summer for many of us. I know that some of you still have a few weeks of school to go, but I thought this would be a fun way to kick off my annual summer book a day challenge, because this is the ninth summer that we're doing the book a day challenge, and I can't even believe that it's been that long. I know some of you have participated in the book a day challenge off and on over the years. Some of you are diehards and you've done it every year, and some of you are like me and we make a commitment to try to read a book for every single day of the year. So that's my annual um, goal, and I usually meet or exceed that goal. Reading is my favorite writing avoidance activity. I'm working on a new book with Terry Lassane, and so my books are my reward if I get my writing goals met for the day. If you're not familiar with Book a Day, the way it really started was when I was blogging for Teacher Magazine for Ed Week in 2009, and I was teaching sixth grade, and of course I have my two daughters at home. One of the things that I realized was that the closer we got to the end of the school year, it seemed that reading was one of those things that really got crowded out. We had so many activities at school, at night, end of year assemblies, choir performances with my kids. We also, that's often a time when the school libraries are starting to close so they can do inventory and librarians can get out for their summer. And I just kind of felt this in a time when we seem to need it the most, that transition from the school year into the summer, a little bit of a decline in the reading that my kids and I were doing at home, and also the reading that my students were doing. And so I made a public commitment on my Book Whisperer blog to try to read a book for every single day of summer vacation. And as I was talking to my students about their summer reading goals, I shared that goal, my goal with them. I told them I didn't expect them to try to do that kind of a goal. But for me, it helped me as a teacher because I was making a commitment to something. I was asking my students to make a commitment to summer reading, and I needed to do it too. For those of you who know my work, I'm all about walking the walk. And we can't really engage kids with reading if we ourselves are not engaged. And so I felt like making that public commitment was important. For me as a professional, one of the things that I used my summer book a day to do was to catch up on a lot of the great children's books that had come out that I just couldn't seem to get to during the school year, or books that I brought into my classroom that I put in the hands of a student and then I still wanted to read it, but I didn't have the heart to take it away from a child, of course. And so I also took recommendations from my students. Hey, what's something that I haven't read this year that you think might be something I should read over the summer? So there was that exchange in our reading community of them giving me recommendations for my summer reading. At the same time, I was giving them recommendations for theirs. Another benefit, when I walked into my classroom every fall, I had 2 or 3 bags of books, new books that I was fairly certain my students hadn't seen yet, that I could share with them and that I could use in my instructions. So that's really how Book a Day began. It was very successful that first year in 2009. I blogged a few times that summer about some of the books that I had read, and I was just getting on Twitter about April of 2009. And so I don't think we had the Book a Day hashtag going then, but we did by the next year. I did a little mini book a day challenge over Christmas, winter break, and little challenges over spring break. And then in 2010, launched the book a day challenge for the second year using the hashtag book a day hashtag that we still use today. 2010 was kind of an auspicious year for me professionally in a lot of ways. The Book Whisperer had been out for about a year, and I realized, oh my goodness, people are actually reading it. Then I also met Colby Sharp in 2010 because he was participating in the Book a Day challenge, and I had never met him. I wasn't following him online, but he was participating in Book a Day, and I thought, hey, who's this Colby guy? He seems really all in for this Book a Day challenge. And so for those of you who know the history of Nerdy actually started that fall, and so I don't know if Nerdy would have even started without that meeting that Colby and I had during the Book a Day challenge in 2010. The Book a Day Challenge has gone on and on every year, and people have, I've met many new colleagues and teachers and librarians and authors from all over the country through that challenge. People sharing what books they're reading, their personal commitment to their summer reading, and also just a great source of book recommendations. So don't necessarily feel like you need to keep up with somebody else. I'm all about setting personal reading goals. And even if you can't keep up with something like a book every single day, remember, I'm talking about children's books for me personally. Your challenge can look like whatever you want it to. But even if you don't think you can keep up with it or you have some commitments this summer, it's a great source of book recommendations. We don't really have rules for the Book a Day Challenge. I like to call them guidelines because I think guidelines are a little more flexible. I'm also not fond of reading by the rules necessarily. And so the guidelines are like this. You make a commitment to read something every single day. It could be picture books. It could be that novel that you've been trying to get to that's sitting on your nightstand, or something on your Kindle that you put on pause and that marker hasn't moved for a long time. If you're like me, I don't just have books piled on my office floor. I have journals piled on my office floor. I subscribe to several professional journals, and sometimes my journal reading gets really behind. Maybe there's an inquiry that you want to conduct this summer and you just want to do some deeper reading on that. I think your Book a Day Challenge should be personal for you. If maybe you feel like you're trying to stretch yourself as a reader, you could participate in Jean Luen Yang's Reading Without Walls challenge. That could be something you could commit to. If somebody who's participating in the event could post that link, I'd appreciate it. If not, I'll add it later. You could decide maybe you want to fill in a gap that you have as a reader. You want to read more graphic novels, or you want to read more young adult literature, or you want to read a book published for adults. That would be an interesting goal. I remember one year I made my own 40 book challenge, and my 40 book challenge, I didn't really publicize it anywhere, but I was going to try to read at least 40 books published for adults that year, which for me was a challenge. But I did make it that year. Book a Day is really meant to be fun. It's meant to be a way for our online reading community to get together and celebrate reading, to share book recommendations, to find new people to follow, and also make a public commitment as adults who are responsible for guiding the reading lives of children to recommit in our own ways to reading. And that's really what it's about. You can share your book recommendations, the books that you're reading, on your own blogs. If you would like, you could share them on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. You could do snaps for your books. That could be fun for those of you who are using Snapchat. Just find some way to not only to make that commitment to read, but also to share, because I think the community aspect is part of the fun of it, and it makes you feel like you're part of something. It can be motivational. I have quite a few books sitting on my nightstand to read. I've got books piled around my house. I always joke about books as furniture in your home. I have a book buying problem. I guess I'm making a public confession about that, but who doesn't? Uh, I think most of the people participating in this event right now probably have a similar problem. Hi, I'm Donna Lynn, and I'm obsessed with not just reading books, but buying them and stacking them around my house. So I have quite a backlog of books that I've bought and purchased and ordered and pre-ordered, most likely, that will be showing up over the summer. That'll give me something to read. I thought I would share some book recommendations with you, but I'm also trying to scan over here to see if there are any questions or things that I could address. Yes, Eddie, thank you for talking about Reading Without Walls. That's a great challenge, and I think it's a way for us to push ourselves to read differently than we might read. I would hope all of us are reading diverse books, trying new formats, checking out new authors, but that challenge is a fun way to kind of kick that off. I see Terry saying, hi, Terry. Yes, I'm not writing right now, Terry. I should tell her that. She probably has figured it out. Terry talked about reading with your ears, reading audiobooks. Maybe that's something you'd like to try. I know that when I first started reading or listening to audiobooks, it took me a couple of audiobooks to kind of get into the groove of what that required from me as a listener and as a reader. So there was a great article published just a few months ago titled "Audio to Your Ears: Audiobooks Aren't Cheating." A lot of evidence to show that audiobooks when we listen to audiobooks, we have a lot of the same cognitive activities that we do when we're reading in print. Maybe it's magazines. Maybe you have some other professional reading that you'd like to do, or making a commitment to read with your own children at home every single day. That's one of the things I know as a parent. We seem to do less read alouds at home during the summer. We seem to, everybody was off on their own, doing their own thing. Those audiobooks are great for all those road trips, and making a commitment to read something every single day is a nice way to keep that reading habit going over the summer, when students and children and families may have to make a special commitment to doing it. If you can keep reading every single day over the summer, then that's a habit that just leads right into the school year. I often tell my students in the past that a reading life never really ends. It just goes on. And our reading lives wax and wane, they ebb and flow. We don't commit to reading just once. We recommit to reading every single time we pick a book and open it and read it. And so Book a Day Challenge is just another way to recommit to reading. Someone opened my office door and then realized they should probably go away. I'm assuming that was Dawn, probably. I know we just have a little bit of time left in our chat. We have about 15 minutes or so, and I just want to give you an opportunity to share the personal challenges that you would like to make as a reader. And also I want to share with you some book recommendations. I get a lot of my book recommendations from you, so you may see from my reading community. So you may see some books that you would like to read in the thread, or it may be validating for you if someone shares a book they're interested in reading, and you can say, oh, I already read that. I will find something else to read. The one thing I want to emphasize is that the Book a Day Challenge is not meant to be a competition. You're not competing with anyone. If you don't read something every single day of summer break, it's not something to be ashamed of. I'm not a big fan of shaming readers at any age. I think it's meant to be fun, and it's meant to be personal, and that public aspect is meant to be collaborative, community building, not meant to be something to boast about, and certainly not meant to be something to feel fearful of. So jump in, join us. It seems like my video is going slower than my mouth, which, oh, that's a fun feature. Just did this whole hazy thing all the way across. I really don't want it to turn into a competition. And it's also not meant to be a challenge for kids. So this is not something for us to take back to our classrooms and share with students to try to set the bar that high for children. It's just another way for us to commit to summer reading in the same ways that we're asking children to do it. So I'm going to look over at my bookshelf of books that I've read so far this year and see if I have some great book recommendations for you. Let's see, what could we start with? If you haven't read Angie Thomas's The Hate U Give, I almost have to believe it's a willful choice at this point, or maybe you are saving it for some delicious reading over the summer, because I see this book everywhere. It's all over Facebook, it's all over Twitter. Angie's doing all these great interviews about the book. She just made a tour of Europe, sharing the book overseas. It's an incredible book. It's an powerful book. And I think it's not just a book that teens should read, but it should also be a book that every adult should read, and especially every adult who is working with kids. Ramona Blue, my homegirl, Julie Murphy, yes, I can claim that Julie Murphy lives in the same community that I do, because we both live in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area. I had the fun of attending the book release party for Ramona Blue last week, and that was exciting because I got to bring my husband, and I got to bring Sarah, our daughter, and Sarah's boyfriend Carter with us to go to that event. And it's always fun to take teens to a book event where they get to meet an author in person. Julie's an incredible writer. She has such a gift for creating characters that I recognize growing up in the South. And I don't know if that's just universal. I would love for someone who I know she has fans outside of the South, but the voice just rings true to me. And Ramona Blue is just a beautiful story about a girl who is at a transitional point in her life. She's really looking at going off, getting out of high school, and then she really doesn't believe she's going to be able to get out of the small town, Eulogy, Mississippi, where she lives. And she doesn't feel like she has a lot of prospects. And so a great story. Another book that I think a lot of adults would love to read as well as share with teens. Let's see. I could just start naming titles, but for middle grade, I would recommend Amina's Voice by Hedda Khan. That's another beautiful story. It's from Salam Reads, if you're not familiar with that imprint. Elena K. Arnold's A Boy Called Bat is a great story. I think either one of those books would also make great read alouds. So if you're looking to do some research on some great read alouds for your upper elementary and middle school classes, check out those two. Amy Soren King. A lot of us know Amy as A.S. King for her YA novels. She has a middle grade novel this year, Me and Marvin Gardens, and it's really an environmental story about a boy who is trying to save this wild space that's being threatened by developers, and he makes a discovery about a mysterious creature that lives in this woodland space, and he's trying to save it. Erin Entrada Kelly's Hello Universe is another great middle grade novel that I think would be a book to share with a lot of kids. They'll see themselves in it. It talks about bullying. It talks about the power of friendship. It talks about saving yourself and also being an upstander and not a bystander, and to help take care of other people. Let's see what else. Oh, if you haven't seen Nina LaCour's We Are Okay, that's an incredible YA book too. And I loved that one. It reminded me of Jenny Hubbard's And We Stay. I basically cried through the entire book, but it was very atmospheric and beautiful about a girl also leaving high school and going off to college, and the loss that she feels, the loneliness that she feels. Beautiful, beautiful story. I would also recommend, let's see, Jeff Sentner's Goodbye Days. If you haven't read Jeff Sentner's The Serpent King, you should just get off Facebook right now and go get it, because reading that book is much more important than listening to me talk. But I also recommend Goodbye Days, his latest book, another book about grief and loss and guilt, and how a young man feels potentially responsible for the death of three of his closest friends, and how he heals from that. And I also think that's a great book to talk about the importance of getting therapy, how sometimes we can't overcome some of our problems without some professional help. We don't have enough books about mental illness that really value the role of getting help. And so that was one of the things about Jeff's book that I really admired. I also love Adam Silvera. He has another book coming out later this year. I can't wait for that one. But his book, The History Is All You Left Me, is a great story. So many books about dying. I know someone put that in the list. But I always joke that, books should have a conflict. And for many young people, the death of a loved one is a very real conflict in their lives. And also just beautiful writing in Adam's books. I hope that all of you are going to commit in some way to participating in the Book a Day Challenge in whatever way that you feel like you can. It's an important time for us to make that public commitment to reading more and to reconnect with our reading communities or discover new people in our reading communities. You don't have to necessarily follow anyone. You can just click on the hashtag Book a Day and find new people to connect with. Instagram, I would love to see people using Book a Day on Instagram and just sharing the covers of the books that you're reading. That could be fun. And just another way to beef up our reading lives, to make that recommitment, to celebrate the joy of reading that I know we all share, but sometimes it slips by the wayside, especially this time of year when it's so busy and we all have so much going on, end of year with school. Our children are doing a lot of activities. The outdoors calls us, go read outside. I think that would be great. Terry, thank you. Terry's sharing that Audiobook Sync has their summer challenge, or their summer offer that they do every summer, where they share 2 free audiobooks a week. One of them is usually a classic title, and then one of them is a contemporary YA title. So that might be a place if you're doing a lot of road tripping this summer, spending time in airports, and you'd like to have some audiobooks to accompany you on those journeys. Thank you so much for taking some time away from your weekend to join me here on Facebook Live. I am also, some of you probably know, if we're friends on Facebook, I'm not asking anyone to be my friend on Facebook, because those are the saddest words on the internet. Please follow me back. But I am giving away one book every single day on Facebook that represents some aspect of global diversity. And I'm using the Book a Day hashtag to do that from my personal Facebook page. So if you're interested in winning some new books or getting some great book recommendations, I'm also using the Book a Day hashtag for that. So that's my new challenge. Reading a book a day is not as much of a challenge for me anymore. So stepping up my game is giving away a book every single day. Um, Sometimes we ask what we can do to make a difference, and we may feel overwhelmed about how we can make a difference. But here's one thing we can do: share a book, read a book, promote a book that expands our horizons and exposes people to different perspectives, different voices, different formats, different genres. Uh, the only thing that readers seem to like almost as much as reading is talking about books with other readers. And so that's just another opportunity for us to do that. So if you can't commit to reading a book every single day this summer, can you commit to sharing a book every single day this summer? Can you commit to putting a book in the hands of a child every day this summer? Can you commit to book talking a book every single day this summer? Um, I hope that you have a glorious summer. I look forward to crossing paths with many of you this summer. I have a very busy travel schedule this summer. I'm Nerd Camp and ILA and all the Scholastic Reading Summits, and then also many workshops around the country. So I look forward to crossing paths with you in person and talking to you about the books that we both have loved to read. Thank you, and have a great weekend.